Okay. We'll jump in with a video. Now the video's working. Sure.
Throughout my life, because I had autism, and I would just say, well, hey, it's a disability. You should really deal with it, because a lot of you are awesome. You shouldn't make us feel bad just because we have it.
So what do they say when you tell them?
They don't listen, and it makes me really hurt inside.
If your body can move right straight, looking over your shoulder, really flat. Ready? Sideways. Ready? Go! Sideways.
Each Wednesday evening, eccentric energy fills a room in West LA.
It's just an amazing group that lets us express how we feel and act and sing.
Where kids with autism sing what's in their hearts. It's a message of love and acceptance. What these kids say is the antidote for autism.
It's helped me learn to be accepting of the word autism, because I used to not be accepting.
I was able to experience firsthand what some consider a miracle in the making.
And in the end there is love.
There are kids who have a song in their heart, and they're just waiting for a place to be able to express it.
Who am I? That's a rhetorical question. When you start confessing, better check your blessing.
And that place is called the Miracle Project.
Beautiful, you guys!
The brainchild of music and theater coach Elaine Hall, or Coach E as they call her, the Miracle Project was created when her own adopted child, Neil, was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2.
Rather than pulling him into my world, I was able to get into his world. So he would flap his hands, I would flap with him, and we would be birds.
So you had an emotional connection.
Completely. Really, what does any parent want but to connect to their child? And contrary again to the popular belief that kids with autism don't have emotions and they're not sensitive, I find them to be some of the most sensitive, extraordinary, loving human beings.
We are one, and my heart is love, and that it's just, we're just energy. Autism is just energy, and it's love that's expressing out of our hearts to give to the world.
Maya, then what are your dreams? What are your dreams?
My dream is to be on Broadway one day.
To the city that never sleeps. Yo, we got Chloe in the house.
And Broadway's not too far behind. With a recent performance at Carnegie Hall, the Miracle Project has skyrocketed these kids to new heights.
I'm feeling happy. Dreams do come true for me.
Big dreams, big hearts. They've come to accept their ability in their disability.
It was a hard stage growing up with autism, but now I've learned that it's something to be proud of.
And teach others what autism truly means.
It's really that we are all one. There is no us and them. Everyone has a little bit of autism in them.
Are we done? We done?
Well, the Miracle Project is now reaching out globally. The program has been introduced in Ethiopia and just this month in India. Elaine and the kids of the Miracle Project are scheduled to appear before the United Nations for World Autism Awareness Day this coming April.
So, yeah. Acceptance. Acceptance and appreciation has all kinds of different ramifications. So let's get back on track here. There were some questions as I'm looking at this, and there were some questions. Give me 1 second here. We all should sing do 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 do.
Doesn't that make you like anxious and nervous though?
No, because I'm singing. That's my happy place. But I wanted to open up on Barry's picture because Barry said I had to find it.
My old picture.
We all have strengths and weaknesses that create our individual profiles. Children with autism just have more pronounced strengths and weaknesses. So there were some great comments that I'd like to share during the break. One was that how can mindfulness help in a lot of other different ways? So these type of mindfulness exercises of setting an intention that, like I said, we do before every single Miracle Project class. I've been doing this now for 10 years. That's hundreds of Miracle Project classes. They're classes in different states. We do this center ourselves first, no matter what. Because if I'm feeling antsy inside of myself, my students are going to feel antsy. If there's a bad class, it's something that I didn't do. There's never such thing as a class going bad because of the kids, ever. It's what am I not doing? How am I not being curious? How am I not taking care of myself? How am I not centered? So this mindfulness, some people think, oh, we go into class and teach the kids mindfulness. That's separate. We first center ourselves. And yes, this mindfulness techniques help in every aspect of life, no matter what you're going into. So I do want to encourage you to in the 7 Keys to Unlock Autism book, there are resources in the back of how to gain more understanding of mindfulness. You have someone who's been meditating for 1.5 years who can help you here. Yes?
Right, I think that's a very profound thing for us to think about as students, especially in an institution like this, we're always taught, like, the professor is doing really well. They have all this knowledge, all of this expertise, and we're the ones that have to learn better. And we have to sit still better, we have to do all these things. And just to flip that and realize that, really, when you're the teacher, you're owning that interaction, and you're really the one who needs to be centered. I think that's really cool.
Thank you.
So what's the teacher doing wrong when you're not focused? Okay, we'll work on that.
It's a two-way street, though, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And that's why you will have consciousness. So you will not be as impacted by someone else's dysregulation, which we'll talk more about in terms of autism. So that the more centered we can be, the less thrown off course we're going to be by somebody else. Whether it be a child with autism or a professor that's having a bad day. If we're true to ourselves and true to our own intention and we can take care of ourselves and be responsible, we can say that guy's having a bad day. And still be able to tune into ourselves. But that's a really good, important point. A really important point. How do we show up for ourselves is first. Because our kids with autism are going to feel it. I'll tell you 2 quick stories. One, this was before I ever worked in autism, ever. I was an acting coach for film and TV. And I was also a dance teacher. And my favorite student was this little girl who was 6 years old and wanted to learn everything about ballet, and she wanted to learn now. And this is a tragic story. I'll prepare you. She and her twin brothers passed away in a fire. I couldn't show up and teach the next day. I didn't want to teach. I didn't want to teach ever again. But I knew I had to show up because I was responsible to teach. And I buried my sadness inside me. It was an acting class I was teaching, 5 to 7-year-olds. I had the sadness inside of me, but I buried it. I didn't take time to process it, to cry about it. I did it at the funeral, but not before class. I held it. I went into class. Every single improv from every single kid was about my dog died, my hamster died, my bird died. They picked up on what I wasn't saying. I was smiling, I was good, I'm a good acting teacher, but I didn't deal with my own stuff. It taught me 3 things. 1, how important it is that I'm a vessel. I'm a clear vessel no matter what's going on. And if I need to, before I go into that class, write and get all my stuff out, I have to do that first. Number 2, take care of myself. You know what? I could have had a sub that day if I needed to. Number 3, how my inner life impacts others whether I'm talking or not. And that taught me how to be with my son with autism. I couldn't fake happy. I had to be happy. I couldn't fake strong. I had to be strong. And as you're going to be a professor, you're going to be a scientist changing the world, you're going to be a doctor, you're going to be an educator, you're going to be a performing artist, you're moms. You have to change the world every single day. Who you are impacts what happens. We have to be clear vessels. We have to be responsible. We have to learn ways to take care of ourselves. And that's key 1 and key 2, and they build on each other. Yeah? It's so integral to this methodology. Yes?
A person who resonates with me whenever like something bad's happening or something's not getting across, like it's not a reflection of them, it's a reflection of me. How do you balance? Because I think the biggest challenge for me is like when I'm teaching, as an insecurity that I'm not doing it. Because I take full responsibility of the way the class is going. So like balancing, like how do you work on balancing, not like beating yourself up, but also realizing like you're at the vessel. You know what I'm saying?
It's a great question. And mentors help me a lot. I have my support team that I can bounce things off of. We've had the Miracle Project for 10 years, and every single class, when the students leave, we sit around with staff and volunteers and we say what worked, what didn't work, what needs work. And I need to be available for feedback. And if I need to call someone, I call my mentors, I call my friends, I check in. This didn't work today. You've got, you have an incredible resource here, with Rachel and Julie. You can check in and maybe do some reflecting on what is the truth. Because sometimes I'm feeling insecure and it's not the truth. I'm insecure because I'm not telling myself the truth, which is I am making an impact. So I think we have to be so, when we're working with this population, we have to be so clean in our own intention and what we tell ourselves. Build that muscle. I really believe that muscle of self-confidence can be developed by what we're telling ourselves. So I don't know if that's helpful, Emma, but yeah. Yes?
I feel like I'm the bringer of facts here.
Please.
Somebody's got to do it.
Someone's got to do it.
The one thing that parents of kids with autism have in common with professionals who work with kids with autism is that the higher degrees of burnout are highly correlated with the degree of isolation.
Yes.
If you work in a school for kids with autism or public school, wherever, and there's a good, what I call a true team process, not a lip service team process, and you have many levels of support, you just have so much around you to boost you up, even help you problem solve through the real difficult times. But if you feel isolated, you do a lot of what we call pull-out therapy, take a child from the class, you do a little thing in your room, put the child back in, and there's no ongoing system of layers of support. Those are the people who very often tend to leave the field. Yeah. And that's what parents report, we know that. Right? You said it already. Parents who are more isolated are the ones who are most stressed, are the most difficult.
Right. Which makes it even more essential for you when you're working with a challenging population, no matter what, to have that support system. I mean, what we do with our parents at the Miracle Project and why our families aren't isolated, alone, depressed. Our kids aren't depressed, isolated. Our families, while the kids are in class, we have a positive parent support group. And in that group, we share something funny that happened with our kids, something we think is fabulous about our kids. We share, and then we're also there for each other on those bad days when where we can't get off the floor. So we're there. And I think that's essential. It's one of the main components of the Miracle Project is that parent support piece. Yes?
I can tell you that speaking with a lot of other mothers that I was working with, we just taught a class to other parents in how to make the best use of their AAC devices in the home environment and in the community instead of just using them in the home. And categorically, everyone in the class that we were teaching and all of us, consensus, our extended families have almost no contact with us. Mm-hmm. They don't help us with our children. Mm-hmm. Our children don't go on family outings. There's almost no contact. I mean, I personally have no extended family. Mm-hmm. There's nobody to help me with my child. No grandparents, no aunts, no uncles, no cousins. I mean, it's just me, my husband, and my older daughter who also has Asperger's. I mean, that's it. And then my poor little daughter who is just, 11, and she is bearing this huge amount of stress. And then I see families like Marie's and Julie's her mom, and I'm like, you guys, and Julie's like, I'm so lucky. I was like, Julie, you have no idea. You are, and so is Marie. You guys are not the norm, and you are so fortunate that you have such an amazing relationship. And they're in Nashville and Rhode Island, and they're constantly back and forth. And her other daughter also. I mean, there's this wonderful triad of people that is not the norm. So when you're dealing with parents that are stressed out, know that about their extended families, that it is not the norm for extended families to really just be Johnny on the spot as part of that child's outreach. It's just not the norm.
Yeah, it's such a really good point in terms of empathizing with the parents and creating those supports. I mean, that's one of the things that I'm dedicated to as well in faith-based communities. Of really, and that's a whole different topic that we can talk about another time, but of really, how do we bring the community in so that parents aren't isolated? And that's something that is really, really it's a whole different talk, but I'll be back in February. So, but yeah, no, it's
more of a community among mothers,
right,
than we do in our family circles.
We have to create a new family. But that's important. You have a mother community. I mean, that's really important.
We just interact among
ourselves.
Just very quickly to punctuate that point, we've been doing a parent retreat weekend for 20 years.
Yes.
And the parents in our closing circle, and it's not the same parents who come every year. Some parents come back, but others come in and out. And it's just absolutely amazing. Both fathers and mothers will say, I feel closer to some of you who I see once a year this weekend than to people who are a part of our lives all the time.
But there's that background of relatedness that you can't manufacture.
Yeah. So true.
It just comes with that experience.
They say, if you meet one child with autism, you've met one child with autism because everybody's different. But if you meet one parent with a parent of an individual, even with a disability, we're all the same. We all have a common ground. It's very, very true. But we can change that by all of you having the same kind of sensibility and sensitivity. So I just like this quote, where children with autism develop and bloom if their spirits, talents, and self-esteem are not destroyed by bullies, prejudice, doggy training, and being forced to be normal. I want to move on to key 3, which is why it's great to do after the break. And this will help us go on a sensory journey. So if you care to, put down your machines again and come back to that place where we go to, where our feet are planted and we're sitting in our chair and our backs are up straight, and we take a deep breath. And if we care to close our eyes, we can close our eyes and take a deep breath in and let the air out. And I'm going to take you on a sensory journey. If there's anything that is uncomfortable at any time, please stop. If it's slightly uncomfortable and you feel like continuing, go for it with me. All right, so a sensory journey. So get a sense of the way your body's feeling in the chair, get a sense of the sounds in the room, the tastes in your mouth, maybe the smells, feel the way the air is feeling, and just get a sense of your senses as they are right now. Maybe smell your hand, just get a sense of how all of your senses are working. And now we're going to begin a journey. So I'd like you to tune into all the different sounds that you can hear. In a couple seconds, I'm going to get quiet, but tune into all the different sounds, how far away you can hear them, how close you can hear them. Even the buzzing of the lights or the machines. And allow yourself now to just turn up the volume. Let all the sounds come in intensely. And now, as if it is essential that you hear every single sound in order to feel safe. Now keep that going and add touch. Maybe start by touching your hands, feel the different temperatures, and then maybe touch your clothes. And keep the sounds coming in intensely, and start touching as if like you have to touch. You need to see what the textures are like, and you're touching. And keep that going. And as you're touching, maybe your body starts to feel a little uncomfortable in your chair. And if you can imagine that your clothes are itchy, and you're in this body that's a little bit itchy and uncomfortable, and the sound is coming in really intensely, and keep that going, and add smell. And start by smelling your hands, and your body is itchy, and it's hard to sit in the chair, and the sound is coming in, and keep the smell going. And now you've got to smell, and keep smelling. Maybe you're smelling different things, and the sound is coming in, and you're smelling, and add taste. And maybe taste what you just ate, and sound is coming in, and my voice is kind of booming, and smell and touch and taste. And open your eyes and look around the room and keep the sound coming in and the taste coming in and the smells and the touch. And look around the room and see all the different colors and textures and light and shadows and shapes and people and hair and eyes. And now make eye contact and say hi to somebody. Okay, take a deep breath and let the air out. Is this okay to write on this? Is it a writing board? Yeah? Okay. So, what was that experience like for you? Say it again.
Too much concentration on multiple things.
Too much having to concentrate on too many things. Is that what you said? Okay, what else? Anyone else? How did you feel?
Anxious.
Anxious. Anxious. Unbalanced. Overwhelmed.
Unfocused.
Say it again.
Unfocused.
Unfocused. Say again. Itchy. Uncomfortable.
I found myself rocking and you never told me to do that. Me too.
Beautiful.
Is that funny?
Beautiful.
Yeah. Maybe I was anticipating that direction and thought, was that coming? But it was comforting.
Now more I feel there.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. A visual spatial person, thank you. How else? Self-conscious. Anything else? Anybody feel like making eye contact or being social?
No.
I did this too, but like all this kind of like, because I could hear that everyone was moving around when our eyes were closed. Then when we opened it, everyone stopped.
Ah, so it kind of goes back to the subconscious thing.
We started again.
And give him permission to do it again, yeah,
I was
interesting.
expectant. I kept expecting something loud to happen.
Oh, anticipating something.
I kept waiting for something really loud or obnoxious to happen.
So fearful. Yeah? Anyone else? Yes.
I think that snowballing effect, the cumulative effect of just adding more sensory input. And almost like, okay, am I going to fall off a cliff here and not be able to handle it?
How much can I handle?
Exactly.
Waiting for an end point.
Waiting for an end.
Waiting for it.
I was kind of disinterested in what was happening around me.
Disinterested in what was happening around. Wait, let's see. Praying for an end. Disinterested.
I can't even imagine focusing on something.
Like the math assignment in the classroom. Okay, if we take some of these things, too much coming in to have to concentrate on too many things, anxious, unbalanced, overwhelmed, unfocused, itchy, uncomfortable, self-conscious, not social, anticipating something fearful happening, how much can I handle, praying for an end, disinterested, focusing, impossible or unimaginable, wanting to self-soothe by rocking to feel comforted. What could we be describing? An autistic person.
Sensory overload.
Autism or someone with sensory overload. Thank you for making that discrimination. Because we're going to talk about that.
It's interesting how certain sensory functions are more uncomfortable for others. And that could just accentuate the diversity of the autism spectrum. I know that for me, sound is a huge sensitivity, but for others it could be somatosensory.
Yeah. Fabulous. This is great. This is all great. You guys are awesome. Okay, so, and Bear, you can help me out with the facts, the numbers for this one. In my experience, 99% of the people I know who have autism have sensory processing challenges. Not everybody, and this was, remind me your name, I'm sorry. Isabella. Isabella so brilliantly said, not everybody that has sensory overload challenges has autism. But I would say everyone that I know, I can't say 100%, that has autism has some sensory processing challenges or has had intense sensory processing challenges. That if they do have sensory processing challenges, not make somebody autistic, yeah? Okay, I have severe sensory processing challenges. Very similar. Sound. I'm highly sensitive to sound. I'm like the, I'm like in Peter Pan, you know, a click, click, click of a clock sounds like the crocodile to me. Tick, 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 tick. And I can't sleep if there's a clock ticking somewhere. I'm highly sensitive to sound, and I know that about myself, and I know what I need to do. I have to wear earplugs at certain places for sound. I know how to deal with my own sensitivities. As doctors, scientists, as you are going into your professions, it is essential that you are aware of your own sensory system for many, 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 many reasons. Tell me some of them. Why is it essential that you must be aware of your sensory system? Yes, Isabella.
On one side, it helps you learn sometimes.
Yes.
Like, you know, like which senses you work best with.
Yes.
Like I know I've recently noticed that if I'm studying, I have to be doing something with my hands.
Great. Great. So it helps you as an individual to learn. Why else? Great, why else? Why is it important that we know our own sensory system? If we go back to the keys, why? Yes?
Once we know ourselves, we can then kind of help others even more.
Absolutely. What I find is if I'm really tuned into my own sensory system, I can be curious about another's. Yes?
I just want to bring up the issue. We actually discussed it in the last class, that what's most easily observed in people with autism, or any one of us who have hypersensitivities, what's most overlooked is the low arousal, the hypoarousal profile.
Yes.
When you under-register information and you're not visually, auditorily, olfactorily taking in the information, because the whole notion of sensory integration is how the sensory environments help us to be organized as human beings.
Right.
And if you're hypo-aroused and you're not taking in information, that could be very debilitating to you as a person, but usually those aren't the squeaky wheel kids
Right.
whose behavior you see.
Absolutely.
Those are the kids who would be sitting and kind of zoned out.
Right.
And they have problems staying alert and focused. And of course, in autism, one of the big issues is, the most challenging issues, unfortunately, are the people who go rapidly from hyper to hypo, back to hyper.
Exactly, which is exactly why we have to be so in tune with our own sensory system. Because if we're not, if we're the bull in the China factory, we're not going to be able to pick up of is that child, is that person low and hyposensitive, or are they hyper? We have to be really attuned to our own sensory system.
Is it common that a child will have both? I mean,
In certain areas they may.
And the same behavior, the exact same behavior, can mean both things. So you have to be in tune to the child to be able to know what that behavior. You might try, if a behavior, if you try one intervention on a behavior and it doesn't work, it might be because they need the opposite intervention for that behavior.
Absolutely.
They might need alerting or they might need calming, depending upon that particular child. And you have to kind of work with the child a little bit to learn what they need based on.
Absolutely.
But can that same child be hypersensitive to sound and then in another moment be totally insensitive to it?
Yes.
And also across modalities.
Across.
You can be hyper in one modality,
Yeah.
sound,
Yeah,
and
very-
hypo in another modality, taste.
Or even different frequencies of sound.
Right.
Right.
So
Yeah,
they
right.
can tolerate a high, high frequency, but a low frequency could really.
I guess I didn't realize that it could be that way and then not that way. I thought it was, if they were to a certain frequency, it was always to that, but, yeah.
And it can also be based on their emotional life that day.
Right.
Dr. Greenspan spoke about when a child is at the bottom of their box or the top of their box. And that can happen within seconds or not just days.
Right.
Where someone could be really attuned and focused and really doing great one day, and the next day they can't tune in, they can't focus, and they're at the bottom of their box. So it's not like, well, yesterday you were here. It's no, we have to retune it.
It depends so much, and this again pertains to all of us, on your state of regulation, physiological and emotional regulation. I'm willing to guarantee that every person in this room, when you are extremely stressed and high arousal, emotionally dysregulated, you are much more tactily defensive.
Yes.
You don't want that hug when you're in a rage. But you come down a couple of notches, that hug feels really good. So what you could tolerate on a sensory level depends upon where you are physiologically and emotionally at that time.
Right. So, which brings back to Barry's book that's coming out, but where all of these qualities are uniquely human to all of us. They're human qualities. So as we have to be really tuned into our own sensory system. And I'm going to give you a couple examples. If I'm tuned into visual and really understand it, let's say a kid comes in this room and they're walking like this. If I'm tuned into my own visual, what could be going on with this child? Yeah.
Just trying to avoid the lines in the.
Yeah, there may be a sense that there's a separation in these lines. I might fall in. You don't know. But if I was saying, come on, let's just walk, let's just go, I'm not paying attention. But if I can put myself, if I understand my own sensory system, then I can put myself in that child's place at any day, any time. If I'm really tuned in to my own sound sensitivity, and I see a child going like this and there's nothing around, there could be an airplane that we don't even hear that's about to come around. I can be sensitive to that. We have to be sensitive to our own sensory system so that we can be curious about what's going on for that individual. Does that make sense? Yeah? I just want to show this video real quick because I can. Oh. Oh.
It's just
are not aware of things that are very overwhelming for a child with special needs. We have a bit of detective work to do. We don't look to control the behavior, but to manage the environment, to create as comfortable a situation and a waiting room experience for them while they're waiting to see our doctors.
See, she's taking the balloon away. That's it. The balloon is way over there. Sit on her head. How are you? It's Karen. It's Nurse Karen. Do you know what? Dr. Weiss is ready to see you in just a few minutes. You want to come with me? I've got a great room we can sit in. Great job.
One child may love the sound of a balloon popping, right? Because they like that noise. Whereas another child, that noise can be overwhelming to them, right? What can someone do in their world to be able to tune into different kids with different sensory systems?
I think number one, it's important to just be aware that every child is different, and especially a child who's autistic or anywhere within the autistic spectrum. Every child is going to react differently, and like you said, some kids are going to be extremely overreactive and even anticipate the fear of having a balloon in the room because it may be loud. It's the unknown, and for some kids, it's too much to handle. They're not doing it as a behavior, but they're more doing it as there's a fear, there's an anxiety about the unknown, maybe from a past experience.
Another aspect of our sensory system is that we often have difficulty with foreground and background. And what that means is that sounds that most of us ignore, we receive full strength. So we might be able to compare that to watching TV with all of the stations on at once instead of.
So I like that image of all the stations on at once. And so we need to be mindful. Now I'm going to tell you some things that seem kind of, thank you, Emma, that are kind of counter to what you see sensorially and how you can help an individual with these different types of things. We had a student, Elena, and when she first came to class, sound was so overwhelming to her that she would literally cry throughout the class. And if the environment would get so noisy, it could actually throw her into a severe tantrum. So we started having class separately for her and told her sign language of stop. And we told the class that whenever Elena goes like this, they need to get quiet. So Elena got some sense of control over her environment, and the kids got a sense of being able to help and support her. So when things would start to get too loud, Elena learned to go like this. And the other kids were like, hey, get quiet, get quiet. And they'd get quiet. And it would become a game. After a while, because Elena felt so much in control of her environment and supported by her co-actors, that after a while, she could be in the noisiest of environments and has become one of the leads in our shows, has performed in front of thousands of people, and has been able to overcome so many other things as well as that.
Was that soundscape intentional just now?
The what?
The sound that was behind you?
No. No, that was just purely
That was a really, you made the point really well.
Yeah?
It's like we're holding it together.
Yeah. Were you even aware of it?
No.
There was a sound thing going on, and I'm like, okay, so I think we're all over here. And feeling a little tense.
It was a very low frequency.
Oh, I did hear that, yeah. And then it
that was
stopped.
part of your...
No. But that is something we're putting together. So is everybody with me with the sounds about sensitivity? And it's a whole workshop on its own that, obviously we don't have all the time to really, yes, question.
The pupil who you showed in that video, also I realized that her microsaccades, which are the very fast movements of the eyes, were much faster than those in neurotypical human beings, which could be a sign of also visual overloading.
Mm-hmm. That's great, thank you. Yeah.
Interesting. I didn't know that was...
Thank you for reminding me.
we could see.
That's fascinating. So you guys are our teachers. All of those actors were kids with autism playing the role of kids with autism. Yeah.
Elaine, I have a question.
Yeah.
So, so she was able to generalize that ability to be in environments, so like not just in your presence, but everywhere.
That's a really great question. We found with the Miracle Project that our kids are able to generalize into all kinds of environments. It's not limited to just the Miracle Project. She's asked to be the lead in her school play. She's, I mean, all of our kids, we find that they know how to make friends. They're proud of their autism. We have one student who, I don't have a video of her in this slide series, but maybe I can bring it back in February, where she started out in our most severe class. She cried all the time, had tremendous anxiety, would literally roll on the floor, could not even stand up in front of one other child without tremendous anxiety and screaming, screeches. And she was in our most beginning class for 3 years. Then we gradually helped her to start going into our second level class. And as she says, and one day, opera came out of my throat. She is now the first autistic in the Los Angeles Children's Opera. She started class there, she started last summer without a one-on-one. She always had to have a one-on-one. Without a one-on-one. And the first day she told everybody, hey everybody, I just want you to know I have autism. So it's nothing we ever taught her. It's something that evolved from a natural process of being loved, supported, accepted, and appreciated, of being allowed to be who she was, and supported in that way for many hours and weeks. Yes?
Just a quick question. What's acceptable? Someone with autism, an autistic child, what is the way you speak about a child on the spectrum? Sometimes saying a child on the spectrum, it's a lot. I mean, but you also want to be respectful of what's acceptable.
Rachel, that's a great question. This is what I found. And Barry, this is what I found. That parents prefer their child to be called a child with autism, a child on the spectrum, because they want their child to be seen as a child first. And if you say autistic child, then all of a sudden they're an other. So I found that parents prefer their child to be called. Now, our son, prefers to say, I'm autistic. And it goes back to self-identity and and when I've done studies, my own, asking out into the environment of what people prefer to be called, many adults prefer to say I'm autistic. So what I do is in my writings, I interchange, I go back and forth. If I'm writing about children, I like to say a child on the spectrum or a child with autism. If I'm talking about teenagers, young adults, and adults, I will go back and forth between saying on the spectrum and an individual with autism or an autistic boy.
And then someone, I don't know if it was you or someone else said an autistic. I mean, is that acceptable?
In some circles it is, in some circles it's not.
Yeah.
I do prefer when I'm working with children to say a child with.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a lot of PC issues that go on.
Yeah.
Especially in the 80s, what we're talking about is what's called person first language.
Yeah.
And by the way, some professional journals require person first language if you submit an article.
Yes.
And in some cases you could be rejected by a sensitive kind of reader.
Right.
Says that, well, what's this person doing all this? An autistic child. Yeah. But exactly as Elaine said, there are some very, very prominent self-advocates with autism who say it is such an essential part of who I am. You don't say a person with maleness and a person with femaleness. Okay? So it varies greatly. Right now, whether it's PC or not, the way you use it depends upon who's listening.
And I think it's really important to when you're writing something to be published, read other material that they have published, because that varies too. I mean, the Disability Institute of Delaware, you don't even say neurotypical anymore. You say disabled. Now, it used to be you should not say disabled. So that changes as well. And if you're publishing, just make sure that you check the latest publication because it is constantly changing. I think it's pretty much standard that to say a child with, because again, you want, it is people first, and you want other people to see that child. But it's a great question and it's unanswered. So, okay, so I'm gonna move on. We'll just keep that up right now as we talk about. So I'd like everybody to just kind of flap their hands for a second. And flap in front of your eyes and see what you see. We talked about sensory. And flap to the side and feel what that feels like and what you're getting. What are you getting? Remember, the keys are all about you. They're not about someone you're working with. They're about you. So see what you're getting and go back to your eyes and see what you like better, going in front of your face or going to your eyes. And take a deep breath and let that go. And I'd like you, if you care to, get with your partner again. And just one partner say that you're number one, and the other partner say you're number two. Okay? So get with your partner. Okay. Number ones, you're going to be our flappers. And when I say go, you get to flap. And you get to flap whatever way you like. Okay? Number twos. It is absolutely mandatory in order for you to keep your position at Brown, your job, or your seat as a student, that this person stop flapping. You have got, that is your intention, that is your goal. You must get them to stop. Your job is at stake, your role is at stake, your position in the school is at stake. Ready, set, go.
Let's try to slow that down. Good. Please stop. Please
stop. Okay, let that go. Let that go. All right, take a deep breath. And let the air out. For my flappers, what was that like for you?
Awful.
She touched
She was touching. I attacked her. Yeah.
I was worried about it. It was good because she flapped with me.
Oh, you're ahead of me. Wait there. Hold that on. Hold that one. You're advanced. Okay. Go on. Hold that thought. Okay. What else? What was it like? My flappers. What was that like?
Well, as soon as you said you have to make them stop, I got very concerned about what he was going to do. Like, it was going to actually hurt. Okay. But like, if that was like an actual real life scenario, I would be really concerned that I would get hurt.
And how did you feel just inside practice playing that? You felt like you were concerned.
Yeah.
Yeah. My flappers, how did you feel about the other person?
Frustrated.
Pressured? Frustrated.
Trying to do what I wanted to do, and they weren't letting me do that.
Trying to do what you want to do. So trying to do what you want to do, and they weren't letting you. Great.
I felt like the more that she told me to stop, the more I wanted to do it.
Bingo. Okay, great. Yes.
Yeah, I was just gonna say they were so sweet and kind. Is that like, yes, please stop, you know, and I would have said the exact same thing, but it's almost demeaning in the sense like, I don't know, I don't know how to describe it, but it felt demeaning.
You felt demeaned. You felt
Like
less
that.
than. You felt less than. She was being demeaning. Great.
Even though it
yes.
was very sweet.
Anyone else?
When she was telling me about I didn't want to stop, and then when she did this, with me, I smiled.
Fantastic.
I understand what I'm doing.
Fantastic. So whatever, most people agree that were my flappers, that their efforts to make you stop made you not feel like relating to them, perhaps made you want to do it more, you didn't feel like connecting with this person, yeah? And my people who were trying to make them flap felt concerned, equally as frustrated? Yeah? Okay, good. Good, just put that in there. My flappers start again. This time, your only intention is to create a relationship with this person. That's it. That's all you got to do, is create a relationship. That's your intention.
I'm flapping.
I know.
Yeah, we're going down.
Jeff and Barry are doing the Macarena.
Where are you going?
Okay, let that go. Take a deep breath. Take a deep breath. What was that like for you? What was that like?
It was fun.
Fun?
We went to Honolulu.
Say it again?
We went to Honolulu.
You went somewhere. You went to Honolulu. Over here.
She kept talking to me and like calming down and everything, and that was also really helpful.
Oh, so you're coming to calm, to feel calmer, okay? And that was helpful. Great. What else?
Lots of smiling.
Smiling.
And then when you see someone smile, try not to smile back.
Wow. Wow. There was smiling and a desire to smile back. What else, Norbert?
No, he was saying, would you compliment?
It's like compliments.
Give you positive feedback.
Oh, that's me. Good. What else? Yeah.
They both started slapping and then started making a game out of it where it was like a mirror.
Beautiful. And how did you feel?
It was a lot of fun.
A lot of fun. Who would you? Oh yes, Emma.
Oh, I was just gonna say, it happened both times. I didn't like say anything. We didn't speak at all. We just like looked at each other, and then eventually it was like it went back and forth, like naturally. I didn't realize she started following me, and then I was like, okay, she's following me. I'm not gonna follow her. And then like I tried slowing it down the first time, but I kept going, and like the second time we started to make a connection. The facing made it more of a connection. Like said a lot about the like position, because when she was facing this way, it was really hard to connect with her.
Yeah.
Versus when we both turned to each other, it was like very easy.
Beautiful. So there became reciprocity between a dialogue without even saying any words. Great. Yes, Rachel.
One thing I was just thinking, I wasn't the flapper, my flapper just left, but I was thinking that there's a sense of power in that. And I thought, well, that's actually not necessarily it. But again, I didn't experience it, but I'm imagining that rather than power, it's a sense of confidence. That you've engaged someone and that you're actually making something happen, in a positive way.
Wow.
Without it being a power thing, but it's
Without power and control, by connecting, you can make something happen. Which goes back to that theme again of the relationship creates a whole nother thing that happens. Something separate. Yeah. Yes.
Like to add on to that, it wasn't like when during the forcing exercise where you had the power over somebody else.
Yes.
This was more of like, okay, it's like all a process of me learning as much as you are learning.
Beautiful.
Well, there's your intention and goal, right?
Yes. Beautiful. Yes, Jeff.
The difference between the two, the first when I had to stop, I felt like there was something like intrinsically wrong that I was doing. It just didn't feel right. And then joining, I mean, to me anyway, intuitively, intrinsically, it felt, that's the right thing to do, and without even seeing what the results are.
Right. So,
And the whole trust issue comes in here. That, there actually is a large literature on affect attunement. And are you attuning to the way I'm feeling physiologically and emotionally? Or are you contradicting the way I'm feeling physiologically and emotionally?
Right.
And that's about relationship also.
Which is, yes.
When a parent and a child always repeats back what the child is saying, like if you're saying apple, and also repeat back apple to you, it's just like on that kind of level, having someone repeat what you're doing makes you feel like you're doing something right. And is the positive enforcement that you're looking for.
So there's a validation. There's a validation. Who could you learn better from? Someone who's Now, the first time we did it, that person or the second person?
Second.
So affect changes the brain. Emotion and connection changes the brain. We are more open and receptive to learning for someone that we feel pleasure, joy, connectedness, than from someone that we feel is trying to control us, demean us, shame us. I'll tell you a little story. There was a time when my son Neil could not go out of the house and take a walk without stopping at every single wheel of every single car. And I was in a hurry. Come on, Neil, let's go. We gotta go. Come on, I'm pulling. Come on, let's go. I'm in a hurry. I gotta get someplace. And I learned about joining, being curious. And I stopped one day, and not being in such a hurry. I got down and I looked at what Neil was looking at. It wasn't the wheel. It was a reflection on the hubcap of the sun into the hubcap. And it was like a kaleidoscope of color. And I said, Neil, is this what you've been trying to show me? And he went, And we got up and we walked. And he never needed to stop again.
I just wanted you to see.
So sometimes we have to get out of our own way, be curious, and see from the perspective of someone else, which is what we all want, which is what we all need. Who are our best friends? Someone who is negating us and trying to control us, or someone who's curious, interested, might go to the movies with us one day to a movie they don't really like it because they want to be with us, right? So all of those things go to that. Yes?
I just want to add a kind of a little bit of a complicated scenario to what we just discussed.
Yes.
And this really has to do with reading the other person and knowing the other person. That sometimes highly repetitive behaviors, things that we were doing, can be a sign of extreme dysregulation.
Yes.
Sometimes it is exploratory. Sometimes it is, okay, well, I'm feeling dysregulated, this is helping me calm.
Yes.
So do you wish to tie that into the...
Yes, thank you for the second part. Thank you. Let's all rock back and forth a little bit. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Rock back and forth. How does that feel? What if someone were trying to get you to stop rocking because we don't rock in school? So very often, certain behaviors, maybe, again, all behavior is communication, may be what an individual needs to feel comforted. Rachel, you were doing it naturally when we were doing the sensory work. To feel in their bodies, to feel regulated, to feel calm. And if we don't allow that, we negate it, we force it to stop, what is that going to cause? Stress, anxiety, more dysregulation, biting. I would bite someone, right? We all do things to calm our own neurological system. We all do that. How many people may tap their foot? I draw and doodle. We all do things. And often, and it's a whole longer discussion on that we really can't completely get into, but to know that all of these things can be to calm, to regulate, to be able to be in an environment. We may take someone going like this, and we'll do this more on Thursday, and turn that into a dance. We may flap with people and make that birds around the room. And what we find is gradually the behavior, when a person feels calm, stops. Not because we've made it stop, because it's a natural progression. More on that?
Well, the other piece of that is, let's say a child is persistently scratching their arm, causing tissue damage. So that's the more example of the extreme dysregulation.
Right.
Where obviously you're not going to join.
Right.
But you would have to read that extreme dysregulation as opposed to what is happening might be helpful, but we like to say sometimes self-regulatory strategies can go haywire.
Yes. And that's when you get a professional. That's when you get an occupational therapist who is trained in sensory integration. And you say, or the same kind of thing, there was an adult that usually was an incredibly calm person and just started biting all the time. So they got an occupational therapist and they got him something to bite on, something to chew, and that didn't work. And they were trying to find all these different types of things, different foods, different things to help with sensitivity, till finally someone took him to a dentist. He had a toothache, a bad toothache. So it goes back to being curious, to finding that, what we were talking about earlier, that team, that team approach. When you're in doubt, ask a professional. If something is harmful, we don't have anyone in our classes, if they're doing something that's self-injurious or injuring to others, no, obviously we're not going to join it. We get professional. We get people who have expertise in those areas. Absolutely. Yes?
No, I was just going to add that, even people who are not on the spectrum, though, I think can do, repetitive behaviors. Kind of like needing to, be doing something with your, doing something with my hands while I'm studying. Not anything big. It can literally just be stroking my pencil. Or one of my friends, whenever we're in engineering class, he'll start jiggling his leg, but that's mainly to keep awake. But
yeah, we all have.
Yeah,
and that drives me crazy. Sitting next to somebody whose leg is out. I mean, that's.
Yeah.
I got used to it.
Yeah.
We hide it better.
We do. We've learned how to compensate. And then we need to be self-advocates and say, I can't sit next to someone who's doing that. We have to, right? Right? Yes.
I went to, a couple of days ago, I went to the Salvation Army and I dumped a bunch of clothes off and I went in to look at their sweaters for my little girl. She needed some sweaters and I thought, I'm going to go look. This woman comes in and she has 2 little boys and she's screaming from the moment she comes in the door at the top of her lungs at her 2 little boys. And my first thought was, I'm going to ignore this because you can't go to a woman and say, stop screaming at your kids as much as you want to.
As much as they can't stop them from flapping their arms. Right?
Exactly, you can't do that. So you have to just say, go to your happy place, go to your happy place, go to your happy place, because you cannot interfere with the other person parenting your kids. Okay? Just so you know, when your parents. So, but what happened is, about halfway through her little excursion into the store, one of her children started to scream this really high-pitched squeal that I recognized, and I went, what? And I recognized it. So I started to tune in, and I started to listen, and I heard her at the very top of her lungs over all the people complaining about her, that, in very rude and obnoxious ways, that he has epilepsy, and he's being tested for autism. So as she's standing in line at the counter, and people are complaining about her, and people are judging her, and they have a circle around her, and they're trying to grab her child because he's flailing on the floor. And with my buggy, I walked between them, and I said, I have 2 kids with autism. May I help you, please? And I sat down on the floor with her child, and I began to whisper to him. And I said, you like Spider-Man? Because he had my Spider-Man thing, he was calling. My son's the real Batman, let me show you a picture. I didn't get close to him, I just sat down. He stopped screaming immediately, and I started flipping through my phone. And I showed him pictures of my son, who really is Batman. Don't tell him you want it, but he's 27, and it's okay if you know, but don't tell him you want, I won't tell you certainly. So I showed him pictures, and when he had finished being done with my phone, he had stopped screaming long since. Everyone else was just watching him not scream. He got up and he ran to the point where he had begun to scream. And he went rummaging at something he had seen while she was shopping. Came out with a guitar. And in his very broken speech said, guitar, guitar, guitar. And I said, you like the guitar? Guitar, guitar, guitar. So his mom came, and I showed him how to hold it. And he started screaming again. And she started screaming again. And I said, watch my lips. Mom, I want the guitar, please. And he looked at her and said, Mom, I want guitar, please.
Aww.
And she said, okay, well, Santa will bring it. And she's screaming again the whole time. I'm not going to do that to you guys. He climbs in the buggy, grinning, and he never screamed again.
Wow.
And I talked to her for about 20 minutes, and I said, if you whisper to him, he will respond to you. Get him to look at your mouth. Then I gave her the list of advocates, and I gave her the list of presidents, and I gave her all this information. I got her email so I could mail it all to her.
So you used it as a teachable moment.
I used it as a teachable moment. But in the moment I heard the word epilepsy and autism, all judgment stopped.
Yes.
And that's something that's going to be really critical for you. Don't look at what they're wearing. Don't look at whether or not they brushed their teeth in the last 3 weeks. Don't look at anything except the fact that that child, you may be the only person that has the moment to help that child. And if you get a moment, if you're fortunate enough to get a moment, take it.
Yeah.
Wherever you get it, however you get it. Have a dummy email if you don't want them emailing you. Whatever you have to do, just take the opportunity if you have a teachable moment and do something for that child, whatever you gotta do. And don't let anything stop you, because you never know if it's gonna be the only moment, because her child is not being services in the school. So-
Yeah, no, absolutely. This is so powerful.
So you may be the only moment that child gets. And the things that you're learning in this class and other classes, just, you never know. And I am not an expert, but other people in classes like this taught me how to help that child that day.
Right.
And I'm so grateful for them. So the things that you learned from Elaine and everything.
No, from you. I mean, absolutely. I
take
just
those
want to
moments.
move on so we can get this up. But the story is so beautiful and such a powerful example of how you were able to show up,
You're learning.
and exactly how you're able to show up, and at the same time not join their world in a way of being with that child, and really, really being with that child, and helping the mom, and not judging.
But all behaviors.
Yeah.
communication. He was screaming because nobody was listening.
Right. Very powerful. Very powerful. So, okay, good. So moving on. What we do within the Keys is we follow the child's lead to build relationship. And we make relationship paramount. So, like what you did so beautifully, you made that relationship with that child more important than anything. And by that way, you helped the mom, you helped everybody in the store, you helped everybody. And that we can all take those moments, take that time to build that relationship, to make that more important than anything. To seek out experts when you, in your own practice, are befuddled. You don't know what's going on. To know that you can seek out, that you can make that relationship with that person, with that parent, like what you did so beautifully. The most important thing. So, Dr. Stanley Greenspan was who pioneered the work with, he calls it developmental individualized relationship-based intervention, DIR, or floor time as well. And he's one who really, if you want to read more about this, you can read about floor time. And he really did a lot of the groundbreaking work in that area. So what we do is we will help a child to feel comforted and be with that child in ways that they can feel supported. And then we get to key 5, which is we include the child. We include their information into what we're doing. So, for example, if you saw in the film Autism Musical, if there's a student who loves dinosaurs, we don't call it obsessions. We like to call it preferred interests. Barry calls it enthusiasms. We don't negate their interests. We help them bring their interests into our environment. And we include them. We include everything that they do. I love this quote, we need to make a paradigm shift. It's not about saying, isn't it nice that we are inclusive, but about what we can all gain. And that's the whole idea, is that everybody gains. Every single person gains when we include the interests of others. We have a student who's nonverbal autistic, and he types to communicate. And different ways that you can include that typing. Ways to include the typing, one of our students types lyrics to our songs. And he used to identify and say, hi, my name is Dash, and I'm autistic. And today he says, hi, my name is Dash, I'm a writer and an actor. So again, back to self-identity and confidence in what they're doing. So that's key 5 in terms of inclusion. There's lots of different ways to include. The way that doesn't work, and when people say inclusion doesn't work, the way that doesn't work is plopping a person with autism in the middle of a crowded classroom and expecting them to be able to participate. We like to do reverse inclusion, where we bring the typical kids into our class situation so that the typical kids can learn from what our kids are doing. And then our kids can create a bridge into the regular classroom situation. So we have a program called the Miracle Project in the schools, where we have a regular Miracle Project class that the other kids come into, and they act and they sing and they dance and they create with our kids. And then at recess, those are the exact same kids that are part of, that bring those other kids into play activities and into, I want to show you another video about how you can include ideas into a class. Here's names with movement. Oh, that one's not going to work, so let's try this one. All right, some of these aren't working here. All right, we'll do more of this on Thursday. No, it'll take me a minute to get it all set up, so that's okay. I want to talk a little bit about augmentative communication. And Barry, please chime in at any time with this. But the iPad has made communication so much more accessible to those who previously were not able to be able to communicate. And I know for our son, he can now independently walk into a grocery store and order, or into a restaurant and order what he wants to eat using an iPad and using icons called Pro Loco to Go. And because of that, he's able to participate in a lot of activities. He was able to go to camp for 2 months last summer without a one-on-one aid because of his communication system. So these are things that are going to just make kids with more severe disabilities able to participate more and more and more. And then I want to talk a little bit about high functioning and low functioning autism. That term, high functioning and low functioning, we preferred not to use those terms at all, and instead to say different supports in different environments. So when we did the exercise about what we're great at and what we're challenged with, we can know that some of us are high functioning in some areas, right? Some of us are really, really low functioning in other areas. Some areas we're great at, some areas we're really bad at. But we wouldn't label ourselves as high functioning students and low functioning. We just have different abilities in different environments. So instead, for example, our son, if you put him in a classroom with 30 kids, he will hold his ears, he'll run around, he'll appear what some may term low functioning. But if you put him in the Santa Monica Mountains with those same 30 kids, he will lead them on pathways. He will lead them. And one would say high functioning. So we just really like to say different supports in different environments. So what I'd like you to do is take a second and think about areas that you need more support in and how you get that support, how you ask for that support, and work on it a little bit with your partner. Areas that you need support in and that you ask for support in.
I'm gonna go with
But it makes it different. It's like one thing I do a lot of different things academically and curriculum it's balanced. But not in the sense of like I mentioned, my work ethic's good.
Well, in my research lab, I was just like, yeah,
what do you have about
so I just really I try to like figure it out, but sometimes I just have to ask. Yeah. They're not, but like, yes. Because I'm like asking like every thing you would help the most would probably be what about this? I'm at my desk every day. Every step. I sort of avoid trying to do highly intense activities when I'm not in a good state, which is usually like late at night when I'm like delirious. I don't know. Maybe that's a big important.
Yeah. No, but I feel that's a really problem. I don't know, like it is weird. Like I have so much work to do. I'm so.
Okay, let it go. So, one person share, a couple people share how you ask for supports and what you need, and how you get supported. Anybody?
Sorry, can you say again? Sorry.
How you get support, like, and what you need support on, and how you need others to support you. Yeah, Emma.
Kind of like I got this person, like in terms of like everything. So then I have trouble like regulating my emotions, like sometimes when I'm really stressed out or patience or whatever. I'm like, and I actually have the opposite. I have trouble asking for help with anything. Because I'm like, no, it's okay. I got this. I must be strong. I got this. And then it comes to a point where I'm like, oh, I have to do it, and then I'm forced to ask, and then it happens all over again. And then I'm forced to ask. So that's regulating like the emotions.
Beautiful, beautiful. So one of the things that we work on with our students is self-advocacy, of asking for help when we need it. And as professionals, as you go into your fields, you may need to help put those supports in place. You may need the person that can help them learn how to ask, and to help the parents and give the supports that are needed. Okay, I want to go into key 6, which is practice makes progress, sequencing and motor planning, and breaking large tasks into small pieces. If everybody could, if you have any kind of an object, like a pencil or a pen or your cell phone, but hold something in your hand, water bottle, hold something in your hand, and then put it down. Okay, and now pick it up again. Great. How many steps did that take to pick up that object? How many steps? One? Yes?
I mean, I guess it could be, I mean, there's this famous conductor who said that playing the tuba, you know, it takes infinite number of steps, even though it's, you know, rather methodical, and, you know, and I can imagine just like you need to locate it, you need to, you know, all the, I mean, it's infinite number of steps.
Infinite number, thank you. Bravo, you're the first person that's ever gotten that right away. Yeah. Yeah. Many, I mean, we can look at it, one thing we can think of is it takes 2 steps. Put it down, pick it up. But there are infinite amounts. And let's think about, let's talk about what are the different steps that it takes. What do you have to do? Yeah.
From cognitive neuroscience, scientist point of view.
Please, bring that in.
You see the object.
First you have to see it.
All of that pathway, and then you need to also use proprioception, the sense of self or the sense of knowing where your body is, to know where you are relative to the pen. Then you need to start moving towards it and infinitely correcting your motion at every single place in that movement. The stereoparietal cortex action there.
I can't spell that, so.
Other things you want to add?
So we.
see a lot of Parkinson's disease actually, because we talk about how they have trouble initiating movement.
Yeah.
And it's like a big theme of our class.
Yeah.
But also like I think sensory overload can be added into this because like the thing I happened to me touching.
Okay, so
some just couldn't stay.
So there's so many variables. So many variables. Yes.
I was gonna say, I think the important stuff that might be being overlooked is understanding what you're being asked in the
Understanding what you're being asked for in the first place, even understanding what is this person saying to me, right? Yeah.
Having the focus to even hear at the beginning.
Being able to even focus. Focus. So,
Right, yeah, the emotion, right?
for us, now often individuals with autism are called lazy because they can't follow through with direction.
Or non-compliant.
Or not compliant, which is a word that makes my blood curdle. I do some consulting for an arts education program in Los Angeles, and one of their biggest challenges was how do we get this child to do the art project? So number one, what's the challenge with that? The goal was more important than the intention, right? The other is the child not understanding the directions. So we help them make visual cues for some of the kids. Breaking this big art project down into small attainable tasks. So we have to think about what is being asked of that child and what they can actually do. At the Miracle Project, we'll take a skip and break it down for weeks, just hopping on one foot or just hopping on 2 feet. We break things down into small attainable tasks. We have 13-year-olds who come to us who have never skipped before because at the traditional developmental age when a skip is learned, a phys ed teacher said, well, they can't skip. So they were passed over. And after a series, I know Julie's talking about, after a series of breaking things down into small, attainable tasks, we have kids that are not only just skipping, but doing complex choreography. So again, it goes back to the key before it. We meet them where they are, we meet them at their developmental level, and then we slowly bridge that to be able to do. So that's key 6, and I want to just jump in so we get through the keys. And key 7 is we celebrate. We celebrate every single possible moment. We celebrate every single possible moment. You may be the first person all day long that tells that parent what their child did right, how beautiful their child is, how much fun you had. I'll say, oh, we had such a great time with Josh today. They'd go, you did? Because mostly what they've heard is not. We celebrate everything. We had one student, well, it was Ezra, and I can share his name. We had Ezra, who in the very beginning of Miracle Project, all he could do was, we found out that he loved to draw, so we'd bring drawing to class, and he'd be able to draw. And every time he would look up for even a second, we'd say, hey, Ezra, you're participating. And he'd go back to his drawing. Sometimes he'd look up for a minute, and we'd say, you're participating. Finally, a minute turned to 5 minutes, to 10 minutes, to 20, to a half hour, till one day he did the entire class, and he jumped up and said, I'm participating. So celebrating every single moment. The Miracle Project class itself, we always start with an art project. So there's a slow integration into the classroom. I love this. It took me 4 years to paint like Raphael, but a lifetime to paint like a child. There's never a right or wrong way to do the art project. This goes into what it develops. We have an opening circle where we do a full body warm-up to help the students get into their bodies and help them really get a sense of their bodies, which we're going to do on Thursday. We do names with a movement so everyone can get a sense of who they are and everyone can hear their name. We move across the floor, which we're going to do again. So wear comfortable shoes on Thursday. And we have a creative movement sequence. We also have a whole acting improv component, which I hope we'll have time to get to, where we take ideas. For one student, it might be dealing with bullies. For another student, it might be fear of fire drills. We had a student who came to us who usually was really happy and joyous, but came to us class one day and was just so upset and just sat in a corner and told one of the volunteers, why volunteers are so important, told a volunteer that she was scared because the next day there was going to be a fire drill. So whatever agenda we had in class that day, we threw out the window, and instead the class became all about fire drills. And the other students helped her create strategies, what to do when there's a fire drill. Then we acted out a fire drill. And then we acted out a fire and had her being the person putting out the fire. And we made this whole class, we wrote a song about fire drills that day. The next week she came to class and she said, I wasn't afraid. So we use the acting component to really deal with whatever's going on with their kids in their real life. Do you want to turn on the volume? And that's the most important, is just get to know yourself and get to know the children, students, and people that you'll be working with. So thank you all very much. Thank you. Any questions or comments or stories or anything that you'd like to?
For those of you taking our course next semester, you get more of the learning. So.
A human carrot.
Yeah, that's right. We'll dress in orange.
Questions or comments? Yes.
I was curious if more traditional forms of meditation have been introduced to children with autism, like transcendental meditation. I know I've been practicing that for a very long time, and I know for even college students, it's eye-opening to see how helpful it can be. And there's been a lot of studies done to show how TM can help calm one's agitation and frustration. I don't know if, beyond breathing exercises, has TM been integrated too?
I don't know specifically TM. I know that Richie Davison at the University of Wisconsin is doing a tremendous amount of studies with mindfulness and preschool kids, and they're also doing some studies with MRIs and kids with autism. And definitely look that up. We do meditation with our kids. We do visualization, meditation, and breathing. We find that it helps. We do yoga as our warm-up because it does help to center. And if there's a dysregulation between the body and the emotions and stress, it's a great way to calm. There's a lot of work being done with breathing, counting from 100 down, 99, 98, 97, 96, helping kids develop strategies for breathing. Barry, can you cite some of I can bring you some of the studies when I come back on Thursday. But yes, definitely. Mindfulness, we were talking at the break. Mindfulness and meditation, fortunately, is becoming more and more popular in education, and we use it in all of our classes. Now, like I said, we use it definitely for our staff and volunteers. We never have a class where we don't start with that, but we're also using it with our students.
I was going to say, does that integrate to the parents at all, like in the parent circles?
Now that's something we haven't done. No, actually that's not true. I start every parent meeting with the same kind of visualization.
Yeah.
But we don't enforce it, which is probably a really good idea.
At our parent retreat, we have a full strand. We have discussion groups and activities. We have a full strand of taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
Everything from yoga to meditation to aromatherapy. And some parents really, who never had any connection to that, connect to it, and others say, nah, not for me. So it's like a cross-section of the population.
Yeah. Right, some people, there can be a lot of anxiety when you stop and breathe. Emotion comes up, feelings come up, and that can be scary. So sometimes just stopping to breathe can be really overwhelming. And it's important to have those supports in to deal with what comes up. And why a lot of people don't want to go that way. Yeah. Yes?
I should have been. I still really wanted to talk about what people brought up about like the family component. Do you think we'll get in more into that on Thursday?
What time is it? How much time do we have?
I have
4 minutes.
4 minutes.
Okay, so we will get more into that on Thursday.
Okay.
And the family component, you have to be, because it's kind of broad, but specific questions, and I'm happy to answer all and every that I can. And will you be back? You guys be back on Thursday? No. Because as parents, it's wonderful, and Barry and Jeff too. But the family component is a very important piece in terms of the supports, creating the group for the family, and specifically question of like what about that?
I'll come up with more clear questions.
That would be wonderful. And we'll start with that. Because there'll be a lot of stuff you'll be thinking about after this workshop. Think about some questions and we'll come up with that, and then we're going to do a Miracle Project class. We'll actually be participating in a class. Yes?
I'm also interested in the mechanics of the workshop. How often do you guys meet throughout a week?
We meet once a week. Though over the summer we had a camp and we met 5 days a week for 5 weeks. It was awesome. It was really amazing. The growth that happened from day one to the end was amazing.
We did this exercise today in my Parkinson's class where we walked through the room, and I told everybody that when I stopped, everyone should stop, and then we did something, and then we could only start when I started. Now that will evolve into somebody else can stop and start. I wanted them to understand the rules. And what was so interesting is how long it took people to stop after I'd stopped. So to that point of mindfulness, we know that with aging, they say, mindfulness is probably the #1 healthy brain activity you can do. It's the simplest. Sudoku and all those wonderful things are great, but just being mindful is probably going to save your life more than anything. And so it's something that I think all of us can do at any point, and it's so interesting. I mean, we were all laughing about it because it's like, hello, I've stopped, because they're just like going on in their own. Because I think for all of us, it's so easy not to be mindful.
True.
So I think it's wonderful to do just as an exercise for this class to be doing.
You can start every class like that.
Well, I've always, I hold that every class from, kindergarten up should start with the centering. And Miranda and I were saying we really should be doing this when we come into this class. I think part of it is because people kind of filter in and that will happen, but I think having that kind of sacred space for 2 minutes, I was hearing this thing the other day on listening and how that's, we're losing our power to listen. And that one of the best ways to hold on to it is to have silence for 3 minutes a day. Now, we can't in this room have silence, but we can have as close as you can get to that. And so it's something to consider.
with the non-stopping, most of our kids, when we go across the floor, and we'll do this on Thursday, they'll always want to bump into something, always. And so we have a whole thing, we'll do it on Thursday, where we actually teach them where their bodies stop.
Yeah.
So it's a similar thing of not being able to stop, of teaching them how to stop their bodies. So that's, really good. Yeah. Yes?
What's coming to mind out of this discussion, the whole notion of how you interpret behavior.
Yes.
I've heard some parents say whose kids were circular pacers, well, that's their walking meditation.
Yes.
That's a beautiful interpretation.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And my son needs to do that. That brings him down. And other people say, stop it. It's pacing. It's obsessive behavior.
Right.
That's interesting.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. A couple more, because then I think we got close because some people have to leave. Yeah. Yes.
Very briefly about that centering at the beginning of classes. I realize that many professors say that they don't have 2 minutes to lose from their lecture time, and then actually trying to shut the class up for 2 minutes, which just sounds, it's an issue.
Imagine if you were to walk into a room that was silent, because that's what you did at the beginning of each class.
Yeah.
You guys need to create a movement.
I think so.
I love that.
That and the skipping movement, that's the other thing.
Movement, music, meditation.
I want somebody to start a national skip class day. I think somebody at grammar school.
Oh,
You
yeah.
can't be unhappy skipping.
That's right.
You just can't be. And imagine seeing all your classmates skipping across the green. Wouldn't that be awesome?
I could see a YouTube of that would go viral.
You heard it.
It can't be when the roads are icy because of